The story begins with Kim Dokja, a simple young man with an ordinary life. But Dokja has one thing he likes, which is a novel called Way of Survival. He is not just a fan, but also a loyal reader who still follows the story to the end. The novel tells the story of the gods who punish humans through endless suffering. When the world is almost destroyed, the main character, Yo Jung-hyuk, appears with his friends who fight against despair. Unfortunately, after several episodes, for many people, the story is considered trivial and unrealistic. However, Dokja continues to read until the end because he admires the figure of Jung-hyuk, who always rises from defeat. Unfortunately, his life in the real world is just that of an ordinary young man who is often bullied and has no courage to refuse, even though he is forced to fight with his own friends. After graduating from college, his fate did not change much. He only became a contract worker in a company, until the day came when two big things happened at once. The first and last series of Way of Survival was released because only Dokja read it, and the second, Dokja's working contract period, ended. He also wrote a message to the writer thanking him for that extraordinary story. However, Dokja also criticized the end of the story, which was too sad, and destroyed the previous stories. He wrote honestly, hoping the writer would make the final version more beautiful. On his way home by train, Dokja met his co-worker, Sang-ah, whose fate was not much different as a contract worker. Not long after, the lecherous manager appeared and started to seduce Sang-ah with a promotion promise. But quickly, Sang-ah pretended to have a promise with Dokja. At that moment, Dokja suddenly received a reply from a mysterious account named TLS123, which is the writer of the novel. In the message, the writer thanked him because the story was beautiful. The reader of the novel asked Dokja to write the final version as he wished. Before he could think further, the train suddenly stopped and stopped rumbling. A strange voice also suddenly said, "The free service of Planet 8612 has ended." Dokja remembered those words exactly at the beginning of the novel, which was very familiar to him. Not long after, a strange creature resembling a small doll, Labu Labu, appeared, flying. He wanted to give an explanation, but the passengers protested and considered it only a system disruption. One of them pushed Labubu because he was in a hurry to make the creature angry. Without mercy, Labubu also shot a flash from his eyes and killed the person. Labubu then announced that the gods had imposed a punishment on humans, who were considered the most selfish race in the universe. From that moment, everyone will go through a survival scenario, and the first challenge was to kill a living creature in 10 minutes to get 300 coins, while those who failed would die. The horror began. They started attacking each other to kill each other. In the midst of the chaos, Dokja saw a small child hugging a glass box containing his pet ants. Meanwhile, the blinding wall covered the way out. Dokja then saw the main character, Yo Jung-hyuk, the main character of the novel that he had only read. At that time, Dokja really understood that the world of Way of Survival had now become a reality, and only he knew how this story would end. Dokja's gaze then focused on the glass box containing the ants of the small child. From there, he got an idea to solve the first game rule. He took some ants and gave them to Ah, so that the girl would be safe. Later, he also wanted to help everyone, but the atmosphere was so chaotic that no one paid attention to what he was doing. Without thinking twice, Dokja also killed an ant when the system announced that one person had completed his scenario. Then everyone wanted to listen to Dokja and realized that the term living creature actually includes animals, even insects. Unfortunately, the number of ants in Dokja's hands was not enough for everyone. The chaos broke out when the ant manager appeared and tried to rob the box for his own safety. Dokja then saw a man trying to kill a grandma. He tried to save the grandma but was surprised when he found out that the man was Kim Nam-ham, one of the characters in the novel Way of Survival. Realizing his weakness, Dokja immediately exchanged 300 coins for the result of killing ants as a physical power. However, Nam-ham first got a power sponsor and immediately turned off the dark transformation ability. In a blink of an eye, Dokja was again beaten to a pulp. In the middle of despair, he saw a capsule filled with ant eggs thrown from the box near his feet. He also stole the capsule filled with ant eggs. The system immediately counted the hundreds of dead living creatures, and Dokja got a flood of coins. Quickly, he exchanged the coins for the highest reflex ability, then returned to the situation until he managed to defeat Namham. You son of a bitch. At the end of the scenario, the system killed all the ants who failed head-on, one by one, including the grandmother, who did not manage to be saved. At the same time, Labubu reappeared and said that the constellations, which are the entities of the gods who watch from the outside of the earth, were very fascinated by the scene. Labubu then added that those who survived now have the right to choose a monster sponsor from another dimension to get new power. But before anyone had a chance to react, the train honked loudly, then rolled and fell from the bridge. From the window, a water-like creature was seen attacking non-stop. At this time, an army tried to open the door so that everyone could get out. Dokja then introduced him as Lee Yoon-song, one of the allies of Yo Jong-hyuk in his novel. Under the direction of Dokja, Yoon-song managed to force the door open, and the passengers rushed out. In the midst of the chaos, the little boy who owns the ant box refused to leave because he was angry at Dokja for destroying all his ants. Dokja immediately carried him and ran away. But the test was not over. The system suddenly added a new challenge to cross the collapsed for 1,000 coins. From below, a water dragon appeared and shook the bridge until it broke. And to make the audience more cruel, the dragon even turned the victims into zombies and ordered them to attack those who were still alive. In that critical situation, Sang-ah suddenly realized the new strength in himself. From his hands came a strong silk thread, and quickly he used it to make a crossing for everyone. From a distance, Dokja saw the main character fighting alone against a group of zombies. That sight reminded Dokja of the novel he once read that at Chongmuro Station, the main character would die when facing a fire dragon. If that really happened, the whole world would also be destroyed. Realizing this, Dokja also determined to prevent the death of the main character named Jung-hyuk. However, because it was impossible for Jung-hyuk to defeat the fire dragon alone, Dokja also tried to warn him about the bad luck that awaited. Unfortunately, Jung-hyuk did not believe him at all. He even accused Dokja of lying and challenged him to prove his words by dropping him from the bridge so that he could eat the sea monsters under it. According to Jung-hyuk, if Dokja can really see the future, of course he will be able to get out of the monster's stomach. Undoubtedly, Jung-hyuk also pushed him to make Dokja swallowed by the sea monsters. In the creature's shell, Dokja found a hidden scenario. It is written clearly that if he managed to kill the monster and come out alive, he would get 9,000 coins. However, if he failed, his life would end within 48 hours. After a while, Labubu appeared again. Based on his knowledge about the contents of the novel, Dokja immediately knew that the name of Labubu was actually Byung, a storyteller who was doing live streaming in front of the constellations to celebrate donation ascending the castle. Byung was certainly surprised because the people in front of him knew so much about him. Dokja also took advantage of the opportunity where he invited him to work together with the promise that their action would attract the attention of the constellations and make Byung win a lot of donation. And in the end, Byung agreed. They then made a secret agreement so that the constellations did not violate the promise. And indeed, the action of Dokja inside the monster made Byung's viewers explode the donation flood from the constellations. Finally, the two signed a long-term contract with a division of 50% by 50%. But the situation drastically changed when the acid liquid began to fill the monster's pores. Dokja quickly asked Labubu to take out his magic bag, a thing that was only known to a few creatures. From inside it, Dokja bought a stick of toothpicks that he then used to pierce all the holes where the acid liquid. Thanks to his intelligence, he was able to kill the monster. He then took the monster's core ball and asked Byung to replace it with his black name, Terofat. And, as an additional bonus, Labubu gave him a beginner's pore pack. Dokja then took a skin mask so that he could breathe in the water and out to the surface. As soon as he appeared on land, Dokja was immediately flooded with notifications from the constellations who wanted to become his sponsor. But he rejected all of them and asked Byung to cancel that feature. After that, he hurried to Chungmuro Station to meet Jung-hyuk. On the way, he was hungry, so he decided to stop by a shop. At first, he thought there were still a few people who were safe. He hadn't had time to talk for a long time when a monster suddenly attacked. Hearing the reflex, Dokja ran while carrying one of the victims and managed to save him. The woman then introduced herself as Jung Hae-won. But before she had time to rest, a group of people who had originally intended to kill Hae-won and her friends appeared. Realizing the danger, Dokja also exchanged his 1,500 coins to buy a battle skin, and the fight could not be avoided. The battle was then stopped by the appearance of a man who was dressed in formal attire with a hat. The figure, for some reason, felt strange in Dokja's memory. Along with that, Sang-ae and his other friends turned out to be at the location. They all gathered again. Although Dokja still felt that something was missing because Jung Hae-won, the main character, had not yet left for Chungmuro Station, as was supposed to happen in his novel. From there, Dokja realized that the scenario at the station where he was not over yet. It meant that he could not move to the next stage before all the rules in this place were completed. According to the scenario, everyone at Gimho Station was required to pay a tax of 100 coins so that they could stay there every day. Shortly after the man told him that Dokja had a lot of coins, they began to demand that Dokja share some of his coins to save them. But suddenly, Dokja realized that he finally remembered who the man was. The man was Kwon Eun-seong, a monster who had left his humanity for power. Realizing that, Dokja refused to give his coins to the monster. On the other hand, he was determined to complete the scenario at the station in order to free everyone from the tax imposed and from the power of the meat eating. And the scenario this time demanded them to destroy all the monsters in the station area, without a time limit, with a prize of 5,000 coins for the winner. After making weapons from wood and tin, they then walked along the dark underground rail. Fortunately, Gil-yong, who now has the skill to control animals, immediately called a group of monkeys to light their way. But the peace did not last long because the monsters immediately came to attack. In the chaos, Sang-ah was kidnapped by one of the monsters. Dokja and the others immediately chased him until he arrived at the nest of the monster-eating boss, Asasaland. A fierce battle ensued until they were defeated. When they were cornered, the monster released his main skill, which is the illusion hand trap. The hand can trap the victim in the deepest until he is left to die. Unfortunately, Hae-won and Yoon-sung managed to get hit by the illusion hand and saw the most terrible nightmare that Hae-won and Yoon-sung experienced. When the situation became more tense, Dokja called La Bubu to buy a black horse. He chose pure white energy that was able to penetrate the illusion power. With that, Dokja managed to kill the monster and save everyone. As a result of that victory, each team member got a new item. Hae-won got 2 pairs of knives, Yoon-sung got a hand protector, Gil-yong received an insect control helmet, Sang-ah got a clock, while Dokja got a broken sword. And for the sword to be complete again, he needed a rare item called Ether of It that was still hidden. Before they returned, Gil-yong found a mysterious blue stone. Dokja explained that the stone could cause an illusion prison effect when eaten. Then, he kept it. However, his friends were curious because Dokja seemed to always know what would happen. Dokja only smiled and said that he only had the ability to predict the future. Hearing that, Sang-ah asked when this world would return to normal. Dokja then answered that the world would return if they managed to solve the remaining 99 scenarios. However, only one person was able to do it, which was Jung Hyuk, the main shopkeeper. The problem was, Dokja knew that Jung Hyuk would die in a battle against the fire dragon, and if that happened, the world would be destroyed. Because of that, Dokja was determined to complete the scenario at the game hall station first in order to open the time barrier and find Jung Hyuk. Meanwhile, The animals realized that in order to end the scenario and free themselves from the chain of suffering, they had to get rid of the ferocious monster. Without hesitation, he immediately jumped into the fierce battle against the ferocious man and his followers. Even though his opponents were able to turn the dragon into a monster, the animals were determined to defeat him. However, when Dokja was about to finish him off, the villagers appeared and stopped him because they were afraid that the action would trigger a more dangerous play. In the chaos, the fierce man took advantage of the opportunity to escape and managed to pass through the barrier that no one could pass through. However, suddenly, a bullet pierced his head from a distance. He died instantly, and the scenario was declared complete so that Dokja and others could pass, and the shooter turned out to be Lei Ji-ye. That's that cat over there. As soon as the order was over, they all immediately moved to a new location, which was Chungmuro Station, where the next scenario began. There, they had to survive the monster attack by standing in a green box. However, the number of boxes was very limited, causing everyone to panic and fight for a safe place. Ji-ye, who turned out to be Jung Hyuk's student, sent a message to Dokja to save himself because he knew where the next box would appear. According to Ji-ye, if Dokja survived, Jung Hyuk might want to work together against the fire and prevent the destruction of the world. However, Dokja's unselfish attitude made Sang-ah and others disappointed. They judged Dokja had changed, especially when he asked them to sacrifice others in order to get the green box. And finally, they chose to leave. Not long after, the monster came and attacked anyone who didn't make it to the green box. Seeing that, Dokja regretted it and ran to his friends. He said the green box might be the most dangerous among the two red boxes, where the monsters, they split into two groups. Dokja went with Gil-young, while the others went in different directions. Suddenly, Dokja found Jung Hyuk had reached the last green box. Jung Hyuk said he was ready to work together against the fire on the condition Dokja had to put Gil-young in the green box. Because he couldn't find another way, Dokja was determined to eat the blue stone and was trapped in the prison of illusion. Inside, Dokja was forced to face the biggest fear in his life, which was the dark past when he killed his friend and died to save himself from the bullies. That memory haunted him until he met Jung Hyuk in another dimension, which explained that the essence of every story was the sacrifice of someone to save someone else. After that, Dokja also lost consciousness. A few times after being trapped in the illusion, Dokja woke up. He was surprised to find out that his friends had protected him from the monster's attack for 3 full days. Even the soldier was badly injured to make sure he was still alive. Soon, the second round of the scenario began. Dokja also announced that that day the fire dragon would appear. Because he was moved by the sacrifice of his friends, Dokja decided to replace the main character and face the dragon himself. He knew that the only way to defeat him was to destroy the main ball in the dragon's chest. However, on the other side, Labubu, who was in charge of the area, decided to change the rules to make the scenario more interesting. He only provided a green box for people who had the most coins, and that person was the old man who they called Uncle. From there, the chaos broke out. Everyone was fighting for their last chance to live. Before the situation got worse, Dokja tried to invite Ji-hae to join him in his plan, but the girl refused. She still wanted to take the box by herself. Finally, Dokja, who was determined, came to Uncle and bought the green box for 100,000 coins. As soon as the box was moved, Dokja destroyed it to fulfill Labubu's plan. However, because his power was not enough, Ji-hae, who saw his action, eventually helped and shot the box until it was destroyed. Now, without a safe place left, Dokja asked Uncle to help him fight the monsters. Uncle also took out a machine gun and tested the creature with a bullet. Not long after, a firepower appeared, and a terrifying Jung Hyuk, who was already in the location, immediately went forward to defend. At first, he looked strong, but the system detected his ability beyond human limits. which made the powerhouse gain strength. At the same time, the difficulty level of the scenario also jumped sharply, making Jung Hyuk furious. Dokja then fought with the help of Gil Young, who called a ferocious wild boar, and Jung Sung, who also mobilized all his strength. When Dokja was about to destroy the core of the dragon suddenly returned. At that time, Jung Hyuk, who had fallen, rose again and fought endlessly. Until he fell to the battlefield, which slowly made the world disappear with his departure. However, when everything was really cornered, the writer exchanged Ether of Fate with the core ball of the sea monster that Dokja had as soon as his sword returned and shone bright light. With this strength and the help of his friends, Dokja only managed to destroy the core of the fire dragon, ending the great battle. The victory presented a gift, a victory to bring back the dead. Without a doubt, Dokja also used that gift to revive Jung Hyuk. He smiled because he managed to write the end of the story at the ending. Unfortunately, that part didn't last long. In the middle of their relief, the manager showed up with a severe wound and informed them that outside, humans had started slaughtering each other.